It was a brisk autumn evening when Henry first stepped into the quaint and seemingly innocuous Elmsworth Café. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries wafted through the air, inviting him to escape the chilly winds outside. The cafe's dim lighting cast eerie shadows on the vintage furniture and ornate decor, lending an almost mysterious charm to the place. Henry chose a corner table by the window, where he could observe the world outside while sipping his cup of hot coffee. The café was nearly empty, save for a couple engrossed in quiet conversation and a solitary figure hunched over a laptop at the counter. As he settled in, he noticed an old painting hanging above his table, depicting a serene countryside scene with a darkened forest in the background. The artist had captured the beauty and eeriness of nature in an unsettling balance. Taking a sip of his coffee, Henry's attention was drawn to a faint whisper that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The cafe's ambiance was so quiet that even the softest sounds carried far. He brushed it off as a figment of his imagination, a trick his mind played in the silence of the cafe. But the whisper persisted, growing just a tad louder with each passing moment. Curiosity overcoming him, Henry shifted his gaze to the couple by the window. The man's lips moved in hushed tones, his eyes locked onto Henry's. The woman's expression remained neutral, but her fingers drummed an anxious rhythm on the table. The whisper seemed to gain direction, as if the couple was engaged in a secret, sinister conversation intended for his ears alone. Unease began to creep into Henry's mind, a feeling that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. The cafe's atmosphere was changing, as if shadows were merging and bending, casting the room into a surreal dimension. Henry's heart pounded as he realized that the whisper was not a figment of his imagination. It was real, a chilling undercurrent that carried with it a sense of impending danger. Henry's instinct was to leave, to escape the unnerving aura that now enveloped Elmsworth Café. But as he attempted to rise from his chair, a voice deep and melodious resonated from the counter where the solitary figure still hunched over his laptop. "Stay, dear friend. Join us for a tale that's far from ordinary." The words were calm and inviting, yet held an underlying malevolence that sent shivers down Henry's spine. He felt as if invisible hands were holding him in place, rendering him powerless to resist. Against his will, he found himself drawn to the counter, his steps guided by an unknown force. The man at the counter raised his head, revealing piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he extended a hand towards Henry. "I am Julian," he introduced himself, "a storyteller of the peculiar and the macabre. Tonight, I shall weave a tale that will enthrall you." Julian's words seemed to bend reality, and Henry's surroundings blurred as if they were part of a feverish dream. The café walls melted away, replaced by the very landscape from the painting, a countryside shrouded in darkness, a forest that beckoned with shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. "Listen closely, my friend," Julian began. His voice was a mesmerizing blend of charm and malice, carrying a tale of a long-forgotten village named Elmsworth, nestled deep within the heart of the sinister forest. The village, he described, was shrouded in mystery, its inhabitants bound by an oath of secrecy that went beyond mere mortal understanding. As Julian spoke, the couple by the window leaned in, their eyes fixated on him, their faces contorted in a mixture of fascination and dread. The shadows in the room danced in time with Julian's words, flickering and shifting in an eerie choreography. Henry was entranced, unable to tear his gaze away from Julian as the story unfurled. He spoke of a curse that had befallen the village, a curse that had twisted the very fabric of reality within Elmsworth. The once thriving community was trapped in a perpetual twilight, where daylight rarely touched the land, and the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred. The villagers, Julian recounted, lived in constant fear of the eldritch creatures that roamed the forest's depths. They had learned to appease these creatures, offering sacrifices in exchange for their safety. The village's leaders, shrouded in shadows themselves, conducted ceremonies to maintain the fragile balance between the world of the living and the world of the damned. As the tale reached its climax, the air in the caf grew heavy with tension. Julian's eyes bore into Henry's, and the whisper of his voice seemed to resonate from every corner of the room. "But beware, my dear listener," he warned. "For those who delve too deeply into Elmsworth's secrets may find themselves forever entwined in its darkness." And with those words, the caf walls solidified back into place. The painting above the table returned to its position, and the eerie shadows receded, leaving behind a shaken Henry in his seat. The couple by the window had vanished, as had Julian himself, leaving no trace of their presence except for the lingering unease in the air. Trembling, Henry paid his bill and exited Elmsworth Café, his mind haunted by the tale he had heard. As he walked through the now familiar streets, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had brushed against something truly malevolent, something that defied the boundaries of reality. Days turned into weeks, and Henry tried to rationalize his experience as a vivid hallucination brought on by exhaustion or stress. But the whispering shadows of Elmsworth Café remained etched in his memory, an enigma that he couldn't fully explain. He found himself drawn to the café again, unable to resist the pull of its eerie charm. With each subsequent visit, the story seemed to take on a life of its own, growing more intricate and haunting with each retelling. The café's ambiance, too, shifted as if it were an entity itself, adapting to the stories being spun within its walls. And Henry, whether by his own curiosity or some external force, became a regular patron, willingly stepping into the world of Julian's tales. The line between reality and fantasy blurred further, and Henry often found himself questioning whether he was truly experiencing the events he was told, or merely lost within a labyrinth of Julian's creation. Elmsworth Café became his refuge, a place where the sinister and the surreal merged seamlessly. And as time wore on, the café's reputation grew. Adventurers, thrill-seekers, and those drawn to the dark and mysterious flocked to Elmsworth Café, eager to experience the uncanny tales firsthand. Each night, Julian would weave new narratives, each more twisted and unsettling than the last, drawing his audience into a world of chilling fascination. But one evening, as Henry sat once again in the corner by the window, he noticed a peculiar absence. The painting that had always hung above his table was gone. In its place, a mirror reflected his own startled expression, and the room seemed to vibrate with an unsettling energy. As Julian began his latest tale, a sense of dread settled over Henry. The story was different this time, a narrative that seemed to intertwine with Henry's own experiences. Julian's words painted a picture of a man who had become trapped within the stories, his reality merging with the fictions, until he could no longer discern the boundaries between them. Henry's heart raced, his breath quickened, and he struggled to rise from his chair. But invisible hands held him in place, just as they had the first night he heard Julian's voice. He was a character in Julian's tale, a pawn in a game he could no longer control. The café's shadows began to dance, their movements no longer a mere spectacle, but a malevolent force that encircled him, squeezing tighter with every word Julian spoke. Henry's surroundings blurred, his mind spinning as the stories he had heard merged with his own memories, creating a surreal tapestry of fear and confusion. As Julian's voice reached its climax, the room around Henry shattered, leaving him suspended in a void of darkness. The whispering shadows that had once held him captive now swirled around him, whispering secrets and lies that echoed in his mind. He was trapped within Julian's narrative, a puppet in the hands of a malevolent storyteller. The line between fiction and reality had dissolved completely, leaving him lost in a nightmarish realm of his own making. The eerie charm of Elmsworth Café had become his prison, and the sinister tales that once fascinated him now tormented his every thought. And so, the once ordinary café continued to lure unsuspecting souls, its walls whispering tales of the macabre to those willing to listen. As the stories grew darker and more twisted, the boundaries between the real and the imagined faded, and Elmsworth Café became a place where reality itself was rewritten by the sinister tales that flowed through its walls.